Coming up later tonight, Sparked blasts off beyond the final frontier and bids farewell to an old friend. We look at a concrete 3D printer and a student-built one. And are robots able to predict the weather better than humans? Last week, we looked at an AI television anchor. Our meteorologist next. Find out next on Sparked. Welcome back and good evening, Valpo. It's another Sparked Friday, and we have a wonderful show ahead of us. Tonight is all about space, so with this week's theme in mind, let's blast off for this week's Fast Five. Number 5. The way you use your phone and what you can do with it took a big step into the future last week. Samsung unveiled its newest line of devices, including a foldable phone that fits in the palm of your hand and also unfolds into the size of a tablet. The Galaxy Fold also has 6 camera lenses and will cost close to $2,000. And number 4, Elon Musk predicts that Tesla will have self-driving cars by the end of the year. Musk recently made the prediction on a podcast with ARK Invest. He said the cars will be able to find you in a parking lot, pick you up, and take you to your destination without any help. Musk said by the end of next year, self-driving cars will be safe enough for people to essentially fall asleep and wake up at their destination. But he said the only thing preventing his self-driving cars from hitting the road would be regulations. One auto safety group says Musk's predictions are wildly optimistic. The German luxury car manufacturer Porsche is set to launch its first electric SUV. Promoting its most famous model, the Macan SUV, Porsche wants to unroll the model in the next few years. The SUV is named after the plant where it is manufactured in Germany. The original Macan model was released in 2011. The company didn't mention a likely price for the electric Macan, but the most basic version of the current model starts at just under 60,000. The company is planning to invest about 6 billion euros or $6.8 billion is developing electric cars over the next 3 years. Porsche wants half of all of its new vehicles to be either hybrids or fully electric by 2025. And number 2, big changes are coming at Apple involving the way that apps are developed. Currently, separate versions of apps must be developed for iPhone, iPad, and Macs individually. But the overhaul on the way, named Marzipan, will allow app developers to create an app once and work on iPhone, iPad, and Macs. The company hopes this will spur a creation of new software and allow more integration across platforms. The expansion plan is set to begin in 2020 and be finalized by 2021. And finally, at number 1, when you think Tyrannosaurus Rex, you presume it was always the king of dinosaurs, but a newly discovered fossil tells us that it wasn't the case. The fossil, found in Utah, is believed to be one of this creature, Moros intrepidus. It lived some 96 million years ago, but unlike the T-Rex, which stood about 12 feet tall and weighed up to 8 tons, the Moros was between 3 and 4 feet tall. Researchers believe the Moros fills in the timeline between the earliest smaller Tyrannosaurus and the T-Rex. And while lightweight, the Moros was quite fast and over millions of years evolved into the more memorable T-Rex. The findings were published in Thursday on Communications Biology. And that wraps up the Fast Five. From Samsung to Tesla to Apple, paleontology and Porsche, the world keeps turning and people keep innovating. And here at Sparked, we will continue to bring the latest news from the industry. On the way, a discussion with our new Sparked space correspondent, and later Weather with Blake and Heather's Heather Bricka joins us to discuss the latest in forecasting technology. You're watching Sparked on VUTV, the show keeping you up to date on science, technology, and innovation. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. Joining us now is Sparked Space Correspondent, or maybe soon to be Sparked Space Cadet, Craig Benke, here to discuss the current and future state of space, as well as other space efforts around the world. Craig, it's great to have you here.
Thanks, Colin.
Just last week, SpaceX launched its first private mission to the moon. A SpaceX rocket took off from Cape Canaveral, Florida last Thursday night. It was carrying a spacecraft made by an Israeli company called Space IL. It's 5 feet tall and weighs about 1,300 pounds fully fueled. It will take a couple of months for it to reach the moon, and landing will be the most difficult part. But if it is successful, it will be the first ever privately funded probe to land on the moon. Craig, what can you tell us about this launch?
Well, Colin, Thursday's launch put their payloads, the new Santra satellite, as well as the Beresheet lunar lander, into an extremely high elliptical orbit called a geostationary transfer orbit. With the furthest point being roughly 22,000 miles above the surface, the Beresheet spacecraft will then make a series of burns to push the farthest point of the orbit out even farther until eventually it is captured by the moon. It should land sometime in late April. And this method of getting to the moon is in no way fast, but it is very fuel efficient. And by the way, SpaceX did stick the landing.
And Craig, we've seen so many successful Falcon 9 launches recently. We had 22 successful launches since the start of 2018 alone. But I hear tomorrow we could see something very special.
That's right. Tomorrow we should see the first launch of the Crew Dragon spacecraft, which is one of the first commercial replacements for the space shuttle.
And what are the implications of this launch?
Well, the launch tomorrow, assuming it happens, will set the stage for astronauts finally launching again from American soil for the first time since 2011. The issue, though, is that it is an incredibly high-stakes launch. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is do or die in terms of SpaceX's credibility and safety. A failure tomorrow could mean that they will never launch any astronauts at all. And because of that, SpaceX and NASA are being incredibly cautious with the launch and have already delayed it 15 times since late 2016.
And hopefully it will launch tomorrow, and maybe we can have you on after that and talk about how it goes.
Great.
February 6, 2018 saw the maiden launch of the Falcon Heavy rocket, the most powerful rocket in operation, producing over 22 meganewtons of thrust and over twice the lift capacity of the space shuttle. Craig, when can we expect this rocket back in the air?
Well, currently there are 5 flights on the SpaceX launch manifest for the Falcon Heavy, with the next flight currently scheduled for sometime in March and then another one in April. The interesting thing to watch for in these launches is that this is the center core. Since last year during the demo flight, the core ended up slamming into the ocean at 300 miles an hour instead of landing nice and softly on the drone ship. If they can pull off all 3 landings almost simultaneously, that'll be quite the feat of engineering.
And now it's easy to get caught up in all the flashy SpaceX buzz, but I hear there's plenty of other exciting efforts out there. What can you tell us about those?
Well, the main competitor to the Crew Dragon, the Boeing Starliner, is launching sometime in April atop a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket for its own demonstration mission to the ISS. And this is good because it gives the US another way to orbit independently of the SpaceX system. In addition, Virgin Galactic is making news with the second flight of Spaceship Two, which is able to take space tourists and NASA experiments 55 miles above the surface. And then finally in the commercial space roundup, there's Blue Origin, which is currently launching its new Shepard spacecraft on suborbital flights over 62 miles over the Earth's surface. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, Collin.
Thank you for joining us, Craig.
My pleasure.
Before we head to break, let's take a moment to recognize someone we lost just last week. After 15 years of operation, NASA officials declared the Mars rover Opportunity mission complete. Outliving her planned mission of 90 sols or Martian days, Opportunity spent 5,352 sols on Mars, being the first to discover meteorites on Mars and driving a record 45.6 kilometers on Mars, the only lunar or Martian rover to travel more than a marathon. A dust storm caused her to cease operations on June 10, 2018, and enter hibernation 2 days later. NASA officials were hopeful the windy period between this past November and January would clear the dust from the solar panels once again, but after over 1,000 recovery attempts, NASA officially ended the mission, sending one final transmission, the song "I'll Be Seeing You" by Billie Holiday. Opportunity, mission complete. Welcome back. Back in 2011, a group came together with the idea that robots could predict the weather, and now it is a reality. These robots are now scarily accurate and powering an award-winning app, Dark Sky. Receiving high remarks from the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Wired magazine, Dark Sky is the most accurate source of hyperlocal weather information. Powered by the Dark Sky API, which has quickly become the easiest and most advanced weather API on the web. Joining me now is Weather Director from VUTV, soon to be VUTV Executive Director and 15 weather meteorologist, Heather Bricka, host of Weather with Blake and Heather. Heather, with top technology companies such as Microsoft and the Caltech Jet Propulsion Laboratory jumping on board to partner with such an innovative application, where do you see, as a meteorologist, this type of technology taking the field over the next couple years?
Well, you know, Collin, I really do see that sometimes in this world where people are so wanting to have information readily available for them, they are going to turn to this app, Dark Sky. And I think for meteorologists, it's more important for us to look at it as there's still a need for TV meteorologists and forecasters in the private industry for more safety reasons and safe farmers for agricultural reasons and things like that. But for the new millennials that are coming into this generation, they're really going to rely on this app to really forecast for the weather.
And personally, I'm a tech guy. I love seeing how technology can make people's lives easier. But do you ever get the sense that apps like these could drive people away from watching weather on television? And what point does it become unrecoverable?
You know, I do see that some people who are the newer generation who don't already watch the news aren't going to be watching it for the meteorologists. We have a certain audience that is already going to watch us, and they're loyal to our following, and they're always watching the news for the meteorologists for weather. And those are the people that are going to be our loyal followers. But this new generation will turn to apps like this, which is unfortunate to see because literally just 15 years ago, that was one of the primary sources for most people to get accurate weather information.
Yeah, we're already seeing that transition. A recent poll of Americans took a look at where people go for their weather forecasts. Leading the way was their phone's default weather app, which almost 1/4 of Americans go for their weather forecasts, followed by local TV news. If we break that down further, that puts 56.5% getting their weather info from some sort of technology source, where only 35.8% got theirs from TV. With the numbers even more lopsided among the younger ages surveyed, where do you see the future in terms of television meteorology?
I see us really making a shift here in the recent coming years of less emphasis on live TV meteorology, but rather the Facebook Live meteorologists and Instagram Live meteorologists, and just I think that a lot of our generation is really looking towards social media for a lot of information. They're consuming most of their information on social media nowadays, and that is where they're going to turn to more so than the actual live at 5 p.m. news, 7 p.m. news, evening newses. However, it's still important for us to have those TV meteorologists that are very knowledgeable in the area in which they are forecasting. And I don't think the need for TV meteorologists is just going to vanish someday, but I do see us threatening some of our viewership.
Well, we really appreciate your insight and look forward to having you back on soon. You can watch Heather right here on VUTV Channel 15 on Weather with Blake and Heather. Coming up next, tonight's Sparked Spotlight, and later, if you saw students running around Gellerson in pajamas last week, we will let you know why. After the break, Sparked returns. Don't go away. Welcome back. It's time for tonight's Sparked Spotlight. Once again from the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. This creation that some students from IEEE came together and made is helping other IEEE students with their projects. This 3D printer was built by a team led by senior ECE major Kathleen Salter. And not only was this project 100% student built, but it is used to help other IEEE projects such as Auto Garden. Next episode, we will be joined by a special guest. Callie Lyon of MIDI Madness has a musical demonstration for us on the next edition of Sparked Spotlight. And as 3D printing technology is constantly advancing, we also see a transition into other materials besides plastics. The United States Marines have used a specialized 3D printer to print concrete, and they created a 500 square foot barracks in just 40 hours. Built earlier this month at the U.S. Army Engineer Research and Development Center in Champaign, Illinois, this creation was made possible by teams from the additive manufacturing team at the Marine Corps System Command, as well as Marines from the Marine Expeditionary Force. Captain Matthew Friedel from the additive manufacturing team said, "This exercise had never been done before. People have printed buildings and large structures, but they haven't done it on site and all at once. This is the first in the world on-site continuous concrete print." Plans are already in place to improve the record-breaking project. Marines were used to carefully monitor the project and fill the printer with concrete, but Captain Friedel estimates that the build time could be reduced to just 24 hours if a robot was used to pump and mix the concrete. By comparison, the 40-hour mark isn't too bad, considering it normally takes a team of 10 Marines 5 days to build a barracks out of wood. And last week was TED Week, or Tired Engineer Day, but instead of just one day, it is celebrated all throughout the week in honor of National Engineers Week. This year's celebration was full of exciting theme days, such as Dress Your Best, Dress Like a Professor, and Pajama Day, along with competitions such as Marshmallow Wars, Trivia, and Dodgeball. If you're interested in more about space and how to get there, make sure to check out Valpo Rocket Science, meeting every Saturday afternoon at 12:30. And we're headed over to the final thoughts of the evening. Stay tuned for the quote of the day on the way, and Sparked will be right back. And it's time for my final thoughts of this Friday evening. Let's take a look at the quote of the day. Today's Sparked quote of the day: "Access to success is through the mind." That's from Jack Nelson. We really appreciate all of our dedicated fans reaching out to us on our VUTV social media. If you haven't yet, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and follow us on Instagram at ValpoVUTV. Check out ValpoVUTV.org for the latest from all around Channel 15, including last week's episode of Weather with Blake and Heather and 15 at 5 every Monday evening. You can check out all of our previous episodes on demand at valpovutv.org/sparked. That's anywhere, anytime. And that's all we have for you tonight. I'm Collin Luft, and this has been VUTV Sparked, the show keeping you up to date on everything in the world of science, technology, and innovation. We will see you again next time. Sparked returns after spring break on March 22nd at 7 p.m. with a preview of the April 13th robotics football playoffs and much, much more. Thanks for watching. This has been Sparked on VUTV.